Here to explain why is Natural Resources and Energy Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. Hi, Minister Wilkinson. Good to have you back on the show. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Minister, why are you saying you're not going to send any rebate back to Saskatchewan? What they've decided to do is only a portion of what they pay a price on carbon for.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that that which relates to heating, which is what they have now said that they will not be rebating, will not go back. That will impact the overall size of the rebate. It will go down, which will penalize people in Saskatchewan because 8 out of 10 families get more money back, and it's actually people of the lowest income that actually get much more money back than they actually pay. If you look at Brent Dolter at the University of Regina or Trevor Toombs from the University of Calgary, like the data tells you that they are making people who live on modest incomes poorer.
No, you're right that certainly if they do lose a portion of the rebate, that does disproportionately affect low-income people. My question is, just to be clear, you're not saying now that all of the rebate will go away for Saskatchewan? Because last week you said the government is actually going to stop sending rebates to Saskatchewan residents as of today. So it's not all of the $1,400 to $1,800 they're losing, just a portion.
Yeah, I think what I said was the rebate is a function of the money that actually comes in that people pay in terms of the price on pollution. And so the amount of money that will be coming in through the price on pollution will obviously be lower, and therefore the rebates will go down, which will disproportionately affect people who live on modest incomes. Like, if they are really concerned about affordability, my goodness, they're making it a lot worse for the people who are most vulnerable.
It's interesting, though, because, and I understand the posture you're taking on that specific piece of it, the opposition in the province, which are New Democrats, are actually supportive wholly of what the government is doing. The leader of the Saskatchewan NDP released a statement saying, fundamentally, this comes down to fairness for Saskatchewan families, and remitting an unfair and unequal tax to the federal government isn't right. It's not just Conservatives who are opposing your government on this piece. It's actually New Democrats as well. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would suggest that the leader of the New Democratic Party, Ms. Beck, just as I would suggest Premier Moe, actually have a look at the research and the data. It's pretty clear. All they need to do is drive out to the University of Regina and talk to Brent Dolter. I mean, they are making poor people poorer. And it's pretty shocking to me, as somebody who used to run the youth wing of the NDP in Saskatchewan, that the NDP in Saskatchewan would be taking that kind of a position. It is not thoughtful. And it is not well informed with the data.
But perhaps it's based on sentiment in the province. And again, I understand the math. You're not wrong. Not getting this portion of the rebate will disproportionately impact people in Saskatchewan, particularly who are low income. But the genesis of the opposition that you face from a policy perspective from both the provincial Conservatives and New Democrats is they fundamentally believe what you did on home heating oil is unfair to other parts of Canada, including them.
Well, I would say, first of all, that's wrong because it actually applies to all parts of Canada, and home heating oil is very different from natural gas. It is 3 to 4 times more expensive. It creates enormous affordability issues, and we stepped in to actually try to fix that, including through programs that are actually going to help to displace heating oil by utilizing heat pumps. But at the end of the day, I mean, Vassy, you shouldn't make bad public policy decisions because you think the politics are good. I mean, if that's the way that both the Saskatchewan Democrats and the government are thinking about it, I mean, I just think as somebody who believes in good public policy, that's just not an appropriate way to think about it.
But I think they're not just against the politics of it, they're against the policy because they feel like your government made it political. And I take your point about it applying to home heating oil across the board, but the greatest portion of homes that use that are in Atlantic Canada, 25% compared to very negligible percentages in other parts of the country. You add to that, the Prime Minister was surrounded by Atlantic MPs when he made that announcement. And then Minister Goody Hutchings on one of my other programs said that if other parts of the country wanted to talk about an exemption, they should elect more Liberal MPs. What reaction did you expect from those other parts of the country?
Well, with due respect, Vassy, there's actually more home heating oil homes in Quebec than there are in all of Atlantic Canada. There are just about as many in Ontario as there are in all in Atlantic Canada. So this is not just an Atlantic Canadian issue. But on an aggregate basis, there are more. And I would say, so their answer is to make poor people poorer? Like, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense at all. I would also say, look, you can't pick and choose which laws you're going to abide by and which you can't. If you do that, you're going to have anarchy. The premier of a province cannot say to people that he is going to simply decide which laws he obeys and which ones he doesn't. How does he expect to have citizens of Saskatchewan obey laws that he passes through the provincial legislature? Like, this is unheard of. It's historic in the history of Canada, and it is such appallingly bad judgment. And I say that as somebody who used to work for many years for a very distinguished premier of Saskatchewan. I grew up in that province. My family lives in that province. Like, people in Saskatchewan expect, and to be honest, should be demanding more thoughtful, responsible leadership.
If it is that historic, Minister, will the government, the federal government's response be commensurate with that? And by that I mean, will you pursue legal recourse?
I would say that at this stage, we are looking to see exactly what the government of Saskatchewan will do. I am still hopeful that they will see the light, they will see reason, and they will make a decision to actually rebate the money. But at the end of the day, if they decide that that's not what they're going to do, and that's certainly what they've said, then the federal government's going to have to figure out what the different options are. But what I would say is, like, it can't be the case that provinces just pick and choose which laws they abide by and which they don't. It can't be the case that the federal government decides which laws it chooses to abide by and which it doesn't. We expect all of our citizens to abide by the laws, and it's a democratic process to replace governments at both provincial and federal levels if you disagree with them. But it's not up to individual citizens, and it's not up to individual premiers to decide that they're simply not going to abide by a law that the Supreme Court of Canada has recently upheld.
Again, though, if that is your feeling, Minister, why don't you know for sure what kind of recourse you're going to pursue? And why did your government allow for the downloading of responsibility and jurisdiction over natural gas to go from the Crown Corporation to the government? So now you have to throw potentially a minister in jail versus somebody who worked for the Crown Corporation. Was that political on your end as well?
I don't think anybody's talking about throwing people in jail. What we are talking about is actually having a reasonable response. We want to make sure it's a measured and thoughtful response to illegal activity on the part of Premier Moe. But I would say that we are in the process of sorting out exactly how best to respond to something that clearly is something that the Premier has even said, he knows he's breaking the law.
Is it politically in your interest, though, to be able to hold them liable, even not if you don't throw anybody in jail, versus somebody with Sask Energy? Like, why allow for that downloading of responsibility? Didn't it kind of open the gateway to allow Scott Moe to do what he did?
No, it didn't. It was something that the government of Saskatchewan asked us to do. We did it in good faith. It was allowed for. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody expected a provincial premier to act in a way that is essentially outside the law. To be honest, I was shocked that they would actually go through with this. I think for a province that has given us Tommy Douglas and Alan Blakeney and Ross Thatcher and Roy Romanow, I find it shocking that we've come to the point where we have a premier that's willing to actually behave in this way. Just shocking.
So you really didn't think when they applied to download that responsibility to themselves versus have an executive at Sask Energy take the fall that they were preparing to do something like this? You didn't have any indication that that would be the case?
I've always been of the view that you should actually believe that premiers and the vast majority of Canadian citizens strive to work within the law, strive to act in accordance with the law. I would never assume that a provincial premier would deliberately thumb their nose at the law, and I don't think most Canadians would ever assume that either.
Okay, Minister, I'm out of time. I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Vassy.